Happy lunch hour, gang. Okay, so one of the things that I like to do is put puzzle pieces together and figure out how everything kind of works together and explain the whole story to you rather than the snippets that the media likes to give you. I get such a kick out of it. They'll tell you one part of the story, leave the rest of it out, and nobody ever bothers to put it all together and say, how is this affecting us? So let's start here, okay? Interesting report today. The cost to ship a container of goods from Asia, Southern Asia, or the Middle East has risen 173% in 3 weeks, okay? Now, I'll give you this as an idea. Red Sea, Suez Canal is what I'm talking about here. 12% of all the goods that we consume here in the States go through the Suez Canal, all right? About half of that is containerized goods, say food products, clothing, general merchandise, machinery parts, et cetera, okay? And the other half is oil, okay? And that shouldn't come as much surprise. I mean, we're talking about things coming from Indonesia, things coming from India, Pakistan, anything along those lines. And of course, oil coming from the Middle East. So let's start with consumer goods, all right? Now, the cost to ship something from Asia or the Middle East isn't nearly as expensive as it was during COVID. You remember how that just went astronomically crazy, okay? But we are now, as of today, higher than we have been at any point in the last year. And if you take out that year and a half during COVID, it is now more expensive to ship anything from South Asia and the Middle East than ever before, okay? Y'all remember how the shelves looked, what happened to prices and everything with the supply chain issues we had a couple of years ago, okay? The shelves were a lot more sparse and the price went up on everything. Did it ever come down? No. The products kind of came back, but the prices never went down, okay? It's what led us to, when we continue to have all these high prices and inventory scarcity. Let's use that word, okay? Part 2. This is the part that gets a little more interesting. Oil. Now, half of the shipping that goes through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea is oil. Isn't it convenient that last month Joe signed this deal with Venezuela? Our great friend in Nicolas Maduro, the great communist he is, that support so much our way of thinking, that Venezuela could now provide us a whole bunch of oil. Do you think Joe kind of had this all planned as what was going to go on? Think Joe was involved at all with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the whole Israel thing? Don't even try to tell me that Joe had the foresight to figure out that this was coming, okay? Maybe if it was planned, sure, but Joe can't figure out what he's going to have for dinner tonight. Don't tell me that Joe's going to figure out, some plans for military operations by terrorist organizations in the Middle East a month ahead of time. Not happening, okay? It's an election year. What's one of the most important things people always talk about in an election year? Gas prices. We've all seen gas prices drop. Around here, it's been about 50 cents in the last month, okay? Woohoo, everybody's happy. Why? Because we're getting oil from Venezuela rather than the Middle East, But by Joe tying his hands to Venezuela, what does he manage to do? Well, he's just given China a little bit closer access through the back door. Not that we haven't had a whole lot of military-age Chinese coming across the southern border anytime recently, right? Not at all, okay? But still, the best solution, if Joe wanted to come up with one, wasn't to hitch his wagon to Venezuela. It would have been to drill, baby, drill, right? Okay. But there's the problem. Joe can't afford to piss off the environmental wackos. He needs them too, because Joe's losing his support in every demographic you can imagine. God forbid lose the green people. That couldn't happen. So let's take a look a little bit more of what's going on with the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. I want you to take a look at a map here real quick, okay? And see what the trade routes normally look like, okay? And you can see the red line here shows everything going through the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, north of Africa, south of Europe, and there we go. Right now, there are exactly 0 ships going through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal that are bound for either Europe or North America. They're all being rerouted around the southern tip of Africa, therefore adding 10 days to the trip at a cost of about $3,000 per container. Okay, you know how many containers are on one of those ships? It's insane. Okay. Well, what does that mean? That means that more expensive goods are going to be on the shelf and they're going to arrive much later, if at all. Okay. Companies are either going to pass on those costs to us, or more likely, they're going to go, you know what? We're not going to ship as much because it's too expensive. Okay. That's something big to concern ourselves with. Because, like I said earlier, what is one of the big things that comes on those ships? Automotive and machine parts, like transformers, like brake pads. So all of a sudden, we don't have electricity. We don't have vehicles. Remember 2 years ago, I was telling you the story about the mechanic saying we've been waiting 6 months on a part for a Jeep to come from China. Okay. We may start seeing the same thing again. And you look at getting your car fixed and whether the parts are available at all. Maybe not. Okay. It's not like you're going to go buy yourself a new intake manifold so you've got a spare in the garage. But we're back to that point where it might be worthwhile getting those oil filters or brake pads or routine maintenance type things that you've had in the past. If you didn't pick them up last time, if you can go get them, pick them up now. Because the other thing that's going around, things like jet fuel. What does the military need? They're not running Warthogs and F-35s on diesel, okay, or ethanol, all right? No, it runs on jet fuel. We kind of need the oil from the Middle East for that. Okay. So we can expect scarcity again. Now to give you this, with everything going on in the Red Sea, there was a statement released yesterday by the U.S., by Great Britain, and a dozen other Western nations. Okay, this is what they said, quote, "Ongoing Houthi attacks in the Red Sea are illegal, unacceptable, and profoundly destabilizing. The Houthis will bear the responsibility of the consequences should they continue to threaten lives, the global economy, and free flow of commerce in the region's critical waterways." So what does that tell me? Well, it appears likely that the U.S. military at least, is going to start striking Houthi rebels and Houthi targets inside Yemen and in the Red Sea. Great. Let's escalate the war in the Middle East, okay? Because we're already fighting against Hamas. We're already fighting against Hezbollah. Don't tell me that we're not doing that. Israel's just our proxy to fight there, okay? Why not add the Houthis too? Okay, let's light the whole Middle East up like a Roman candle. What the hell? After all, it's an election year, right? Joe needs a war. Gotta have one of those. That's how Democrats win. Remember, they used to call us warmongers? Not so much anymore, right? Think I'm kidding. Let's take a look at what's happened this week, considering it's the 4th of January. Okay, we can add yesterday's attack on the 4th anniversary memorial for General Soleimani. Remember when we killed him 4 years ago? Yeah. U.S. missile strike, U.S. bombs placed, 103 people killed, 188 injured. And yet this has already been accredited to the Biden administration. Okay. And you can also add the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, airstrike on a residential building in Yemen in Lebanon yesterday that killed a few members of Hezbollah. Okay. See, we touch on the Iranians, we touch on Hezbollah. Okay. We're threatening the Houthis. Let's not forget about Saleh al-Aruri's assassination on Tuesday. Okay. If you think we've gone after Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis and Iran in 3 days. Just saying. Okay. But no, we're just innocent here, right? Sure. Okay. Joe is trying to start World War III in the Middle East. His whole Ukraine-Russia thing didn't work. China hasn't played ball and gone into Taiwan. So Joe's going to go after the Middle East because that's easy pickings, right? Nobody likes the Israelis. The Sunnis and the Shiites don't like each other. Hell, let's get everybody pissed off at each other and we'll just start throwing gasoline on the fire. Joe's idea. Okay. The most interesting part of all of this to me, okay, is to take a look at how all those suburban soccer moms who voted for Joe in 2020, or all those Zoomers that voted for Joe in 2020, how they're going to react to all this. Remember, Joe wants a war. Joe needs a war, he thinks, to get reelected. If we have an election, Joe needs a war so maybe he can declare martial law and cancel it. But however, as I've said, that's never happened. Even World War I, World War II, the Civil War, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Who knows? World War III may be different. Okay. But are those soccer moms and are those Zoomers paying attention, to what's going on? Because guess who's going to get drafted if we wind up having yet another war in the Middle East? I don't know. Hey, Iraq wasn't enough, so let's keep going in Afghanistan. Oh my God, that one's ending. We need another one, right? Because the 20 some odd years that we were there already and the thousands of U.S. troops that we lost wasn't enough. Let's go again. Because guess who's going to get drafted? Oh, it's those same Zoomers who voted for Joe. And it's the kids of those same soccer moms who voted for Joe. After all, you get what you vote for, right? You guys wanted this. It's what you got. Okay. Within the next few weeks, I guarantee you this, we're going to hear all the bitching and moaning about gas prices, because they'll go up, about inflation, because it's going to come back, about the supply chain issues. People better start looking at the bigger picture. Is putting a dementia patient who cares about nothing other than himself worth your life or your kid's life? Joe thinks we need a war. So does the media darling Nikki Haley. Okay, she thinks we need a war, right? That should tell you how out of touch the people in Washington are, because it ain't Joe's kids that are going to war. It ain't Nikki Haley's kids that are going to war. It's your kids and my kids that would be going to war. But the people of this country know we don't need another war. We aren't capable of winning one. I got a yellow card, drill sergeant. You hurt my feelings. Okay, no, we aren't capable of winning a war. And we don't need another one just so we can see our kids come home in a box so that they can continue their grift. Pay attention. It's going to be a real interesting year, let alone month, because the first week so far has been really crazy. Pinball out.